All right, today we are diving into something really fascinating, a draft proposal, a document that outlines an incredible set of emergency powers for the Australian government. Now, to be clear, this isn't law, but it gives us a stunning what-if scenario, a blueprint for how a nation might act in a time of extreme crisis.
And this really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today, doesn't it? It's this fundamental question: where do you draw the line between keeping a country safe and secure and protecting the economic and personal freedoms we all value? This document puts that question right in front of us, in really stark terms.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at what actually triggers these powers. Then we'll get into how it would reshape the government itself, control the national economy, the powers it would have over people, and finally, what it means for Australia's place in the world. Okay, so first things first, before we even get into all these incredible powers, we have to understand the one thing, the single event, that could unlock the whole shebang. And that trigger, it all boils down to two words: economic emergency. But here's the crucial part. The document never actually says what that means. It doesn't define the conditions. So the simple act of declaring one is the key that turns the lock on everything else we're about to talk about. So imagine that emergency is declared. The button is pushed. What happens first? Well, according to this blueprint, the new authority doesn't look outward at the country, it looks inward. The first step is to completely reshape the government itself. And wow, when you look at the specifics, the scale is just huge. We're talking about the power to eliminate entire government departments. Gone. The power to fire literally any federal employee, to freeze pay across the board, and to force a review of every single spending program, all within a month. It's a plan for a lightning-fast, top-down overhaul of the entire system. Okay, so once the government itself is reshaped, the next layer of control pushes outward to the entire national economy. Finance, banking, energy, food, you name it. And this is where things get really wild. We're talking about powers that would give the government a sort of master switch for the country's entire financial system. It's basically the ability to just hit pause on capitalism as we know it. Just think about this sequence for a second. Step 1, you could just suspend the entire stock exchange. For how long? Who knows? Then step 2, shut down all the banks. Again, indefinitely. And then, get this, you could even have the power to create a whole new type of currency to run alongside the old one. These are some of the most fundamental changes you could possibly make to an economy. But it's not just about numbers on a screen, you know? This plan extends deep into the real-world stuff that you and I depend on every single day. We're talking about taking over the power grid, controlling the food supply, and even deciding which major companies get to survive. And the list of these specific powers is just extensive. The government could step in and nationalize an energy company. It could start rationing food and fuel. It could decide what we're allowed to export and what we're allowed to import. It's a level of direct intervention in business that is just staggering. All right, so we've talked about the government, we've talked about the economy, but what about the people? What would all this mean for you, for me, for everyday citizens and their rights? And some of the impacts laid out here are pretty shocking. Think about it. The power to freeze all welfare and pension payments, just like that. The ability to declare martial law, not just nationally, but in specific cities or regions. It even gives the government the authority to decide which university programs are in the interest of Australia and to cut funding for those that aren't. And then you get to this line, which I'm going to read directly from the document. It's the power to punish individuals who threaten the economic security of Australia. Now, just think about how broad that is. What does threaten mean? What does economic security mean? It leaves a huge amount of room for interpretation. Okay, last piece of the puzzle. We've looked at how this would change Australia internally. Now let's see how it would change the country's relationship with the rest of the world. And the powers here are all about one thing, really: isolation. A swift, hard break. We're talking about the power to just halt all immigration, period, including for asylum seekers. The ability to cut off all foreign aid commitments overnight, and to just shut down embassies that aren't seen as essential. It's like pulling up the drawbridge on the rest of the planet. So when you take a step back and look at the whole thing, control over the government, the economy, the people, the borders, what you're really seeing is a complete blueprint. It's a roadmap for an unbelievable amount of centralized power, all concentrated in the federal government, and all triggered by a single declaration. And that brings us right back to that big question we started with. In a real honest-to-goodness catastrophe, how much control is too much? What's the right price to pay for security? It's a tough one, and this document really forces you to think about it. Something to chew on, for sure. Thanks for joining me.